Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight I'm thrilled because we have two outstanding political and town leaders here on the show tonight. And this is December 30th of 2014. And we have a great panel. On the second half of the show, we're going to spend 30 minutes with Chelmsford's former town manager and Lowell's former city manager, Bernie Lynch. But the first 30 minutes of the show, we're going to be talking to State Senator Mike Barrett. Thanks for being on the show,
Happy to be
Senator.
here. Happy to be here. Happy holidays to you.
Same to you.
Did you have a nice set of holidays?
Yeah, it was great, thanks. Great. Very kind of quiet, which is the way I like it.
Yeah.
And my cats had a good time.
Excellent. That's important. My dog always loves the holidays, too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I saw you and your wife at the Parleys holiday party,
Yeah,
which
we
is very
love that.
nice.
We love that event.
It's great to see you.
Yeah.
And what's your wife's name, Nancy?
Nancy, that's right. She hoped
Yeah,
to come
she's so
today,
wonderful.
Tom. She says hi.
Oh, yeah, tell her I said hello, and hopefully
This
she's
morning, let the record show that it must have been 20 degrees, but she bicycled 9 miles this morning down to the Alewife subway stop from our home in Lexington.
You're kidding.
And as we speak, I think she's pedaling her 9 miles slightly uphill.
That's fantastic.
Back home. So she is in great shape, so I don't have to do any exercise.
That's fantastic.
It's great.
So how many miles did she do this
So
year?
she commutes 18 miles a day by
That's
bicycle, and then
fantastic.
then she gets on a subway in Cambridge and goes into downtown Boston.
She's like me. You know I bike a lot.
Yeah,
right?
you're amazing.
At
Yeah, the two of you are going to live forever.
27. I don't know, but it helps a lot, because
Yeah.
I had a checkup about a month ago and had blood work, and it was all fantastic. You
Oh,
know?
that's terrific.
And I think it's all attributable to exercising a lot because I eat pretty much what I want.
Yeah.
And I really, shouldn't eat a lot of sweets, but I like desserts and everything. And I think the exercise helps a great deal.
She's like totally dependent on it.
Yeah.
And of course, with the snow coming, it's going to end for her. She doesn't believe in bicycling on ice.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
And the bike path, this old rail track, the Minuteman Bike Trail through Bedford, Lexington, Arlington, down to Cambridge has to be clear.
Yeah.
So she's enjoying what's probably the end of her season for a while.
I see, yes.
But enough about her.
Right. So you had good, nice holidays?
We had a great time, yeah.
Wonderful.
I have 9 brothers and sisters, and we had our parents are still alive, thank goodness. So they celebrated their 69th wedding anniversary yesterday. And we had our annual family reunion in Reading, Massachusetts in a church basement over the weekend, this past weekend. And, they have 10 kids, 32 grandkids, up teen numbers of great-grandkids.
That is fantastic.
So we have a great time every year.
And this is your parents?
These are my parents. I'm the
The
second oldest of the 10 kids. I really run the entire family, I like to think, yeah.
So you may live to be a 100 years old centennial person. Kind of.
Well, I should start bicycling.
Yeah, all right.
Then I'll be sure.
Well, maybe you could be. How long do you plan to be a senator? Do you have any idea?
Well, this is this is still my first term technically. You've had me on the show. You've been very kind to me, but this is for another 3 or 4 days. I'm in my first term, so we can't make any predictions.
Really? What? Oh, but you're going to start your second term. That's why
I was
thinking,
elected to
a
a second term.
Yes.
And thank you, Chelmsford.
Your 7th time on the show, I believe, right? Michael, I believe
yes.
7th time, your Mickey Mantle time, I call it. That was his number of the New York Yankees.
Oh, great.
But so could you tell us what your goals are for next year, Senator?
Well, I do want to get better at the job. I'm getting to know the district better. We do have a new governor, right? And we will also have a new president of the state senate. So the Massachusetts State Senate has 40 people. It's actually a pretty intimate group.
Yes, yeah.
And you get to know everybody very well. I really like this incoming guy, Stan Rosenberg. He's very thoughtful, very slow to make decisions, very collegial. I hope he runs the place he says he will, like some sort of small college faculty. That would be nice. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very...
You're talking about?
Yes, he'll be elected Senate President in about 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days, nice. So you think he'll do a good job, right?
I do.
You do, wonderful. And how about the new governor? I think
he'll do a good job. If he listens to me, I think he'll do just fine.
Well, it was good. It was a close race, and there were great candidates. And so Charlie Baker won, and I would call him a moderate Republican in the mold of maybe
absolutely.
William Weld and that kind of thing. So that's why I think he appealed to many people.
I think he will do fine. I will tell you that unlike Bill Weld, expectations of Charlie Baker coming in are very high. It's expected that since he was there during the Weld administration and knows the ropes, that he will hit the ground running. I worry a little bit that he will feel a lot of pressure to really make an impression in the first 12 months. I don't think he has much margin for error on the downside, which is to say, we expect him to do so well. We know that he has been around state government before, but also the private sector. Any mistakes or trip-ups in the first 12 months, and he could suffer more than he deserves to in terms of public perceptions.
Yes. Remember, it just reminded me, when the previous governor just took over, the first couple of weeks, it was all about the furniture, I think, and spending some money for
Right.
furniture and drapes and
Yes.
everything, and there was a big to-do about that, remember? Oh, and his SUV, I think there was, I don't know if you remember that.
No,
but-
I wasn't in government, but I certainly
Okay,
remember
yeah,
the headlines.
yeah.
So yeah, these nutty things can happen, but of course you can recover your sense of balance.
Yeah.
And even if Charlie has a surprisingly eventful 6 months, I expect him to recover his and to do fine
Yes, yeah.
with the passage of time. I do think the Democrats really do want to work with him. I don't think it's just lip service.
Yes.
There's no Washington, D.C. paralysis
Thank
in
God.
Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on respecting members of the other party. That's genuine. So I think that the only differences will be real differences around ideas, but there won't be any ill will.
Yeah, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, how about your major accomplishments in the past year, Senator, in the Senate, I'm talking about?
Well, it's I was extremely active. I have a good staff. I tried to pay attention to the little things as well as the major things. I'm a little unhappy with some of the major things, I might add. I'm chair of the Committee on Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities. I worry a lot about kids with Down syndrome or foster kids. Yes. And to see Jeremiah Oliver and some young children die while at the hands of their biological parents or their foster parents, but ostensibly while they were under the protection of the state of Massachusetts, right? Yes. Because these parents were supposedly getting counseling. The deaths of those kids in under state general supervision is heartbreaking, and you really pull your hair out, and I don't have a lot to spare, trying to figure out how to avoid those mistakes. So in the big picture, there were some real setbacks, I think. But on the small stuff, I was able to deliver for the district. Chelmsford had some real priorities, including the raising of a building, a couple of campus buildings owned by UMass Lowell that sit actually on Chelmsford property and that have been abandoned by the university, but they had been sitting there because the state DECAM hadn't moved in to secure the buildings and tear them down. So we've gotten a lot of little housekeeping like that done, and over time that makes a big difference.
Yes, wonderful, Senator.
But I think the human services piece, which is a Charlie Baker priority because he used to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, is going to continue to challenge us. Everything from drug addiction to the care of abused and neglected kids. There's going to be a lot going on, I think.
Yes, and so you had been in the Senate in the 90s.
I did.
Right?
I would not have
back.
represented Chelmsford without practicing on Cambridge. But that was, my wife and I were living in Cambridge with our little babies, and I ran in 1987 and served for 8 years. I actually ran for governor in 1994 in the Democratic primary. I know you remember. No.
Yeah.
Did okay, but not good enough, and left for 18 years and was in the private sector. My focus as a consultant is healthcare and IT, information technology.
Wonderful.
So I reinvented myself as an internet guru, and enjoyed it and had a lot of fun, but missed public service. So
You
ran
really
2 years
did.
ago.
You love being in public service.
It is a lot of fun.
Serving in the state senate is something you enjoy.
It's terrific.
Or you get a lot of psychic.
Well, because
benefits,
it's so
right? 'Cause
small.
you do so much for so many people, right?
Well, you can do a lot. You can engage with the needs of individual people, but you can also deal with these big ideas.
Yes.
And the combination of the two is hard to resist.
Yes.
More people should run for office. Not against me, of course, but
No.
more people should run for office.
And you did have opposition last time from somebody from Chelmsford.
I did. A person Sandy Martinez, a person I respect a great deal. She and I actually, get along pretty well. I think we respect one another, and I'm pleased to have emerged from the race the victor.
Yes. So one of the big things you'll be dealing with is the state budget. And, you know, Chelmsford, everybody in Chelmsford always wants more state aid and Chapter 70 aid.
Why not?
So, yeah. So how are we doing? I know the state budget has to be submitted at the end of January or something, by the governor or something like that.
So it's made public by the governor.
Okay.
This won't sound right, so I hope the viewers don't take it wrong, but we don't pay a lot of attention to the governor's budget because every institution has such a strong sense of its own identity. So the House will completely redo that budget. I mean, they'll be influenced by the governor's people if they argue for a particular point, but the numbers are built right from scratch. And then the Senate will get a budget created by the House and do it a third time. So you've got the governor, the House, the Senate, and they all have to be reconciled at the end and made into a whole. And usually we try to do that by around mid-June.
Mid-June
of 2015. We'll have a budget in place for July 1st. So it's going to be an eventful spring because it'll be the governor's first opportunity to play as a governor.
That's right. So how does it look? Have you heard from him as to what he plans to cut or what he plans to add to? Or
yeah. Well, I'm worried not because of him, but because of this shortage of tax revenues, tax collections that have been in the newspapers.
Because the economy is good.
You know, so I don't think the outgoing executive branch has really come up with a totally satisfying explanation as to why revenues are falling short of predictions.
Yes.
Because as you say, the private economy, which generates the taxes in the first place, is doing pretty well.
Yes.
It doesn't quite add up, but I'm concerned about it a little bit. I'm not suggesting there's any skullduggery. What I'm saying is that the analysis doesn't enable us so far to really understand what goes on. But I can tell you that the state Senate was briefed by people like Michael Woodmer, the head of the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation, 3 weeks ago on the state of the state. And the private economy is in decent shape, but there are some real spending difficulties. I'll give you one example. We had to repair the Health Connector, the website where everybody signs up for their health insurance. And as you know, the state as well as the federal one had trouble. We repaired it. I think we owe the consultant about $35 million, a company called Optum. They didn't cause the problem. They fixed the problem. We haven't incorporated that $35 million disbursement that we owe to Optum in the budget deficit that we've calculated so far. So we need tax revenues to come along to fill that $35 million hole in addition to everything else we've heard about. Wow. So I think Charlie Baker's going to face a deficit, and that's ugly. That means he's going to have to come forward with cuts that he didn't anticipate, and we're going to have to go along with cuts.
Yes.
I worry about local aid. The first, I think the operating assumption for Chelmsford should be that local aid won't go down because it is sacrosanct, but won't go up. I expect my towns and every community in the state essentially to face level funding in terms of state aid.
That's too bad.
It is too bad.
Well, one of the ballot questions last year had to do with the gas tax, right?
And that's
and
one reason we're in the hole.
inflation.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that did not pass, right?
That's
You
true.
and I were for that, and many other people.
Yeah.
But it failed. I think it was demagogued a great deal in advertisements, et cetera. And a lot of people who don't know any better think they really wanted to raise the gas tax when it's really keeping it even in inflation-adjusted dollars, in real dollars.
That's right. It would have been an even by. You know, people say on the other side that the legislature should vote new taxes every time, but I can tell you, the reputation of Massachusetts legislators to the contrary notwithstanding, people in the State House don't like to vote taxes. We're always late. We always tend to drag our feet. We're always behind the financial problem that the taxes are supposed to even out or to address. So that repeal guarantees that we're going to be a little bit in the hole. And when it comes to local aid, when it comes to money for local roads, when it comes to money for local schools, all those repeals, even of a gas indexing tax, are going to have a negative effect.
Yes. And that's why I know it's going to be demagogued, you know, because it happens every time.
Yeah.
Some of the people who are going to vote against it say, my opponent was for increased taxes, when really your opponent was to keep it level in inflation-adjusted dollars.
That's right.
No, everybody should be able to understand that.
Thank you
very
for explaining
simple,
that. You do a very good job. But I'll tell you,
but
legislators,
a lot of people don't, and I see the
including
ads.
state reps in Greater Lowell, including those who represent portions of Chelmsford, got whacked for essentially a level-funded scenario.
I saw that. I think Jim Arcero did.
Yeah.
And others. It's terrible how, these issues are demigrated. That's why it's so important for people to keep informed as to what's going on, if you can, and read and watch shows like this, fortunately.
Yes, I think they
But
should all
they should
watch
always watch
your
this
show.
But,
And then,
but that's why, because so many people, if you're not informed, you could be easily fooled by almost unethical politicians. Because it was used against Martha Coakley a lot, I think, and they were saying, oh, she wants to increase your taxes, referring to the gas tax,
right,
when it was only to make it equal to inflation. It wasn't really increasing taxes like she wanted.
That said, one thing that's going to happen inevitably is that we are going to have some tax votes. Or fee increases. Charlie Baker may try to stay away from the T word and go toward the F word.
Yeah.
Fees in this case.
Yes.
But one way or the other, we're going to have to increase revenues just to, as I say, to help schools and local government, among other things.
Well, one of the ways we're trying to help some of the working class and lower class people is to increase the minimum wage. Which I think
we've
is
done.
a great idea.
So
it's taking effect soon, right?
Yes, well, the first increment is.
First increment,
we're going to work our way up to $11, but in stages, so as to give business an opportunity to adjust. But I agree, there has to be, if somebody's willing to work 40 or 50 hours a week and do her share or his share, then they ought to be able to live off that wage. It's that simple.
Yes.
And if rents in Massachusetts are out of control, and if the cost of living is otherwise very high, we still got to find some way. If you're willing to work and be a part of the American story, you should be able to support you and your family.
Yes, yes.
And that does require popping up the minimum wage.
But even it's going to be $9 an hour, I believe, next week, which isn't even going to support.
Right, which doesn't get to that living wage that I'm talking about.
It will help, and once we get to 11, it's going to help. And then every year, I think they should adjust it, at least to inflation, like we do with Social Security.
That's right.
I get Social Security now, and I get
maybe
a minor adjustment every year.
Maybe we'll put it together with the gas tax.
Yeah, right. Well, lately on the national stage, I'm sure you've seen all the protests going on in New York and throughout the country relative to police shootings and the chokehold killing of a person in New York City. Very often, mostly African-American young men are being killed. And a lot of times these days you see the video of it. And so a lot of people look at, why did this happen? Why was this 12-year-old boy shot down so quickly? If he was a white boy, would he have been shot that quickly?
I don't think he would have been.
I don't think so either, Senator. I really think there's a problem here.
There was a time 25 years ago, coming out of the 60s and the 70s, I'm a child of the 60s, when I thought racism was behind us. And there's no question the country's better for people of minority status, whether it's religion, whether you're a woman, whether you're Latino, whether you're African American, but we're not where we should be. And all of us who are public servants, whether we're state senators or policemen, really owe a special obligation to handle potential instances of discrimination with great care.
Yes.
And I'm not sure we've always been up to the job.
Yes, that's for sure, Senator. Well, another way I think there's a great deal of discrimination is in prison sentencing. As you may know, and throughout this country, there are millions of people in prison. Yeah. Probably more in a per capita basis than any other industrialized country, I guess. And very often they're minorities. They don't seem to get the same break when they're up there. Very often they don't have the resources to hire these very expensive lawyers, and so they get prison sentences. What bothers me the most is for nonviolent drug offenses. So rather than sending them to rehab or putting them on probation and sending, especially a young person, into prison at $40,000, $50,000 a year, which isn't fiscally conservative for one thing, and then putting them in an environment of criminals, maybe violent criminals, what's the benefit of that, I wonder?
Well, we screwed up something royally in this sense. If you do take a look at the jail populations and much of the prison population, it's drug abuse, it's domestic violence situations, and it is mental illness. So we've closed all the institutions for the mentally ill. We've tried to move into the community where we can. But honestly, the hospitals for the mentally ill in Massachusetts are the state prisons. And it's not just members of minority groups, it's people of all races, people of all ages. So clearly we're going to have to rethink that one. To your point, it still costs as much for me to send somebody to Walpole State Prison as to send them to Harvard. And I'm not saying Harvard would accept them all, but although Harvard should think about that. But clearly there's too much money spent. And a good number of those people need to be considered for substance abuse and mental illness. And maybe even some commutations. That's not to say they shouldn't be under supervision. That's not to say they should be out wandering the neighborhood, but they should not be in a jail with no services.
Or if it's a nonviolent drug offense, and say even possession of cocaine or something.
We should be.
I mean, why send a person into prison at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year when it's not going to do them any good? It's going to do them maybe harm, when they could maybe get some rehabilitation somewhere or drug education anyway.
Well, I don't need to tell you how to treat someone in that situation is a real challenge. So I'm not oversimplifying here. I just know the worst result, something conservatives and liberals can agree on, is that $50,000 is being poorly spent. And then I read about the stress that prison guards are under. Because imagine bringing all these people with their personal problems together in one physical place and then saying to this person over there, oh, and by the way, day in, day out, you're to guard them and make sure that proximity doesn't breed any violence, any discontent. That's not going to happen. The whole thing is sick.
And speaking of that, what about, unfortunately, the rapes in prison? I mean, it's just, especially the young people or anybody, is atrocious. And I don't think it's really prosecuted the way it should be, because a lot of people say, oh, they're in prison, we're not going to put all our resources.
And as long as we're speaking freely, I want to take a swipe at prosecutors. My wife is a defense attorney, but of course you understand I'm perfectly objective. You know, this idea of lock them up, go for the maximum sentence. My role is to be the tough dude. It's up to the defense and the judge to figure out where the true balance lies, but I'm just going to be a hard prosecutor is going too far. When I went to law school, and I am an attorney, we were told that the prosecutor, more than the judge and more than the defense counsel, balanced all the interests of society. You protect society, but you also are interested in making sure that that person, when he comes out of the hoosegow, is going to live as a good neighbor to you. We used to think the prosecutors worried about getting the balance right. That's no longer the case. The prosecutors are too tough and seem to think that their reputation lies solely in putting people away for long periods of time, and I think they've done us a disservice.
Yes, I agree. Well, hopefully you could work on that in the Senate with all of your colleagues.
I think Republicans and Democrats want to undo some of the mistakes we've made. Legislators, by the way, have been no stars here. We gave in to the get tough on crime impulse at times when we should have resisted it. Here's the tough thing. One terrible crime happens. One innocent person gets slaughtered by a violent human being, and our ability to consider the broad picture and how to deal with thousands of potential criminals goes right up the window. The newspapers suddenly are holding our feet to the fire, and we're asked to respond to a single vivid instance of something gone terribly wrong, and we overcorrect and influence all kinds of other people poorly.
I think it happens in many cases. 9/11, not that we could get into that now, but I think it happened in 9/11. We have something happen to us, and there could be a significant
Well, that's why we went into Iraq, which was nutty.
And we spent trillions of dollars, lost hundreds and thousands of lives, including the Iraqis, and it's just crazy. The way we could overreact to things as a society and human beings is just not right, I think. But one thing that's a big priority of Governor Baker and should be of everyone right now is the heroin epidemic. What are your thoughts about that, Senator? Is there anything that we could really do to cut this down? It's so many people who their lives are being ruined now.
We really need to make sure that there are substance programs along an entire continuum. One thing that we don't have, for example, because We are talking about folks who are in very desperate circumstances. We don't have secure beds that are non-prison beds.
Yeah.
If you really need, if someone's really strung out
Yes.
on an opiate and you really need to get them off the street, I can tell you that judges and doctors go crazy because we haven't created enough secure beds so that people can dry out.
Wow.
And get, I mean, it's not good.
Wow.
And so I'd like to move a lot of that prison spending
Yes.
over into secure facilities for people
Yes.
who have a drug addiction problem, but who shouldn't be treated as criminals.
Yes, I imagine Governor Baker wants to do that and many other things too, right? To
Well,
fight
you
this
know, the
here-
trouble is Bill
this-
Weld, his mentor, was terrible on this issue. Bill Weld actually was the guy who famously took away TV sets from prisons and got all kinds of positive press because of it. So the guy who brought him into government was crummy on these issues and was a panderer to a fare thee well. I hope Charlie walks away from that role model and rethinks the issue, because all of us bear some of the responsibility for those bad old policies, and we all need to rethink.
Yes. Well, speaking of Governor-elect Baker, there was a proposal recently to raise the pay of the governor and the state senate and the legislators and all of that. What's going on with that now, Senator?
Gee, funny you should ask. Nothing.
Nothing? No?
If we were to have done anything, it had to have happened like this week before January 1st in order for it to take effect in the next legislature. We are not acting. The legislature did not come back into session. Those proposed pay raises, if they ever happen, aren't going to happen in 2015 and 2016. We would have to vote them then, beginning in the new year, and then they would take effect 2 years after that.
Wow.
Now, there is a minor adjustment. An original constitutional, legislators may get $3,000 or $4,000 more because there's supposed to be an inflation adjustment for them every 2 years.
Yeah.
But we don't know how Governor Patrick will do the numbers.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Well, I was just watching Greater Boston last night, and they were saying that over 1,000 state employees make more than what the governor of the state makes,
That's
including
not right.
his chief of staff.
Yes.
It's just illogical,
And as I told Bernie Lynch,
Yeah.
with the exception of the city manager of Lowell, who deserves more money, and all officers at the University of Lowell who do an exemplary job, it is a little crazy that the governor makes
Yes.
1,001st.
Well, many people are going to try to make a lot of money in our new casinos if they ever get built.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about it, Mike? Well, do you think this one in Everett is actually going to be built by 2017? Do you think it's going to look as beautiful as the renderings?
Well, I will just. This is just an observation.
Oh, okay.
I spoke to my colleague, my state senate colleague from Everett, who did not support casino gambling, I think, but who tells me now that the city's very excited. There is a lot of land there on the Mystic River that could be reclaimed. There's some hazardous waste sites that are going to get cleaned up. They're hoping that the job creation comes through and that somehow the gambling addictions don't overwhelm the positive things that happen. Certainly Everett could use a pick-me-up.
Yes,
And we'll see how it works out.
Well, every time you're on the show, you pick me up, Senator. You're a great person. I see you
Thanks,
around
Tom.
Chelmsford and this area so much.
Yeah, we
I think
like
you're
to hang
working
out
so
here.
hard. You and your wife are wonderful people. And I really appreciate you being on the show and
It
all
was
the
a
hard work
pleasure.
you do, Senator. Thank
to
you
see
very
you.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, you want to take Hello and welcome back to the second half of the show. Tonight I'm very pleased that we have Bernie Lynch with us, the former town manager of Chelmsford. Thanks for being here, Bernie.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. It's great to be here.
And most recently, the former city manager of Lowell. How many years were you the city manager? Bernie?
7 years, 7 months.
7 years,
so
7 months.
almost 8 years, but
Wow.
so
And
it
how
was-
many years were you in Chelmsford? It's quite a few,
all
wasn't
told in Chelmsford, it was close to 20 years. in Chelmsford. So,
so
a
20,
pretty good run in both places. It's interesting in Lowell. I think now the city manager form of government in Lowell goes back to 1942, and with my 7 years and 7 months, I'm the third longest.
Really? Nice.
And you have to go back to like the 1950s to find someone who'd been there longer. So as a quote-unquote outsider in the city of Lowell, when I was made city manager, that was a pretty good run. And I had a great team of people. We did a lot of good things, and but we all have to move on.
Yes, and how long ago was it that you moved on, Bernie?
I left in March, so coming up on 10 months
9,
or
10
thereabouts.
months?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how's it been, and what are your plans, Bernie, now that you've left that?
Well,
that
it's been
position?
great. I miss, it's sort of when I left Chelmsford to go to Lowell, I had to deal with all these questions of, how does it feel? What's it like? And I'd tell people that I was looking for a challenge and that I found one. When people ask me if I miss being city manager, my initial reaction was no, not at all. The reality is I do miss being city manager. I don't miss some of the craziness that goes with being city manager. Some of the politics of Lowell. Lowell is a very political place. But I certainly don't miss some of the media issues that I was dealing with. The media has changed over the years, over the 30 years that I've been doing this. And
with the internet and everything, right?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's sort of the media has I don't think the media is as good as it used to be. I think it's thin in the way it covers issues and communities. I think there's there's some other issues in Lowell with sort of the personal relationships of some of the support for prior managers and the like that entered into it, and again the politics came into it. So I don't miss that. Being manager now is much more intense than it used to be.
Really?
I think it is for everyone. I know that Paul probably experiences over here as well, and that's attributable, I think, to technology. As I explained to people, it used to be that I'd go away for 2 weeks vacation and I'd be panicked because I'd be away for 2 weeks and I wouldn't know what was going on when I was town manager in Chelmsford years back. Now, with technology, you never get away from it. You can't take 2 weeks off because you've got that phone with you or the access to the internet, and people expect you to be always available and always there. And so it's far more intense than it used to be, and everything sort of happens so quickly then, and you don't really have the chance to take everything into consideration as much as you'd like.
But you actually miss it to some extent.
I miss being manager. It's being a municipal manager, touching people's lives, touching a community's future, dealing with complex problems, dealing with small problems, is all very exciting.
Yeah.
But I'm doing some great things now. I'm very active. I've been teaching at the university, UMass Lowell, for 30 some odd years, off and on. I just got finished teaching a course in government fiscal policy. I'm teaching urban politics in the spring.
Government fiscal policy,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then urban
politics.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Right, and I've taught state and local and a number of other public policy courses down there.
Undergraduate or graduate?
These are all undergraduate.
Undergraduate.
Right, and
course,
then I'm
nice.
teaching at Suffolk. I taught in the spring
In
of last
Boston?
year.
You're going
Mhm.
into Boston?
I did last year. I taught in the spring, and I'm going back this year to teach a course on budgeting. Last year I taught a course on civic engagement, which is a big issue with me.
Wow.
Community and civic engagement. That's a graduate course, and the public budgeting will be as well.
That could take a lot of time to be a teacher. I used to teach graduate school as well in an MBA program.
It does.
Takes a lot, and psychologically, because you got to
Right.
prepare, you got to think, and then you got to the grades and the exams or whatever.
Yeah, it's only one course, but it does take a lot of time.
So
to do
you're
that.
called an adjunct professor?
I am an adjunct, yes,
Nice.
at both.
Did you ever
both
think of
institutions? Yes.
Going full time?
I toyed with it many years ago, before I ever became a city or town manager. But I think 1 or 2 courses. I'd be interested maybe in expanding my role, but I'm doing some interesting consulting work. I'm working on setting up a peer-to-peer micro lending program right now with a new nonprofit that hopefully will be rolled out in the next few months.
Wonderful. Locally in Massachusetts?
Right, Massachusetts. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm doing some work with some solar people. I'm doing looking at some other energy-related, development, real estate development projects, working with some people on the type of development, mixed-use development that I find interesting. Some municipal management consulting, talking to a number of, working with a number of communities on an informal basis right now, but we may sort of
that would be good too.
grow
Yeah, you could become a consultant, or say they're looking for a new town manager or city manager, you could fill in until they get a permanent one if you don't want to apply.
Yeah, I mean, there is the interim role that's possible. I really haven't pursued any of that because it sort of ties you down in one location. But certainly helping people fill positions or deal with particular problems that people might have, communities might be having. There's a lot of different aspects to what I've been doing to keep myself busy, and I'm finding that it's taking quite a bit of time, more time than I anticipated when I decided I would retire. So I'm busy.
It's amazing.
Nonstop.
Yeah, you're doing an awful lot. I mean, it's plus you're doing some traveling now too, right?
I did.
Go to Europe
I was in Ireland for about 9 days.
Nice.
It's something I've been
that?
wanting to do for many years, and finally I did it.
Are you of Irish descent?
I am, with the name of Lynch. From County Cork and County Kerry, somewhere down there.
Nice.
So,
were your families from?
So yeah, went down and visited down there, and pretty much I did the southwestern corner of Ireland and spent a few days in Dublin.
Nice,
The most fascinating area that I visited was the Aran Islands, Inishmore, the largest of the Aran Islands. Absolutely, sort of a stark beauty to the place. It was really great. I had a fabulous time. The weather was great, and
the food. How was the food?
Well, it hit the spot with me. I kind of like the stews and the soups and but I had a little bit of everything. Some good fish, and the Guinness was very good as well.
I was going to say they have a big pub culture over there,
do.
don't they? And they like to go and be with their friends and go out for a drink at night and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to when I came back, I was going to kind of put together sort of Ireland by the numbers. I drove on the other side of the road about 760 miles.
Wow, I've never done that.
Yeah, that was interesting. The roads are very narrow. People that have been there, I know, all know this.
I've been to Scotland.
Okay, yeah, so it's very similar.
Yeah,
so, but and I think I visited over those 9 days. I think I visited about 20 pubs, and I had a number at one point in time on how many pints of Guinness I consumed, but I'll leave that off the record.
Well, that's wonderful. So you have any
great
other
music, and it was great.
It sounds great. And another thing I like about, since you left being city manager, I'm on Facebook a lot with the Chelmsford Reps and Residents group, my own page, many other pages I have. And it's great to see you there now, Bernie, giving an opinion, which is wonderful, and which I don't think you really felt free to do when you were city manager or town manager. But I love reading your political opinions now because you're free to express exactly how you feel. And I happen to agree with most of your, if not all of your opinions.
Who would have known?
Yeah.
All those years.
All those years, I know. Because I know you were very good in keeping your political opinions to yourself because you had this position.
Right.
And it's wonderful. And
I'm enjoying it.
You're doing because I think you should. And you express yourself very well, obviously. Being a city manager and a leader, you have to, I think, be able to communicate well. Yeah. So it's great to see that.
I'm enjoying that, and I've always I always told people that I was looking forward to the day when I could sort of be more free with my opinions, and I'd like to be able to expand upon that moving forward, even looking at other means of getting that opinion out.
Yes, you could write all kinds of things.
I spend a lot of time linking. I read an article in the Globe or the Times or some magazine or journal that I feel is worth putting out there, and try to add my 2 cents. And step into some of the sort of the issues. I mean, obviously we're dealing with a small platform there of sort of the local Facebook world, but I think there's people should sort of put their opinions out there, and if they can. And I couldn't really as manager, but I feel better about doing it now.
Are you a member of the Chelmsford Reps and Residents group, by the way, on Facebook?
I can't
I'm
remember.
not sure.
Actually.
I don't know.
I know I'm on. I know I see it,
See,
so I must be.
Oh, okay. Oh, I hope you join because you don't have to.
Actually, I think I am because I think I am. And I'm on and there's a Lowell live feed forum and
different things, and your own page too. Where you could post things,
right?
And
Well,
it's good to see your opinions there, but. Speaking of Chelmsford, and you used to live here while you were. Then you moved to Lowell a couple of years ago or something. So I wanted to ask you, which do you prefer? What are the pluses and minuses of each location?
Well, I think both are great communities, and I'm not just saying that to be politically correct. I think that both do have a tremendous amount to offer. And I enjoyed being manager of both communities. Lowell, as I said, was a little bit more. There's a little bit more pettiness in Lowell and some of the negative politics of Lowell, and there's a lot of sort of posturing and some hypocrisy going on over there. That's tough. Not that Lowell, the Chelmsford is immune from that, but it just doesn't seem to be quite as bad over here. Very frankly, nowhere near as bad. As communities go, I loved. Living in the town of Chelmsford, it was great for me with my kids growing up.
Right?
Yeah, I had a big single-family home, a very nice single-family home in a nice area, and I enjoyed that. What I like about Lowell is being able to, I live right in downtown. I'm able to get up and walk out and find myself a cup of coffee and run into people.
Right in the center somewhere?
Live right in the center,
nice.
yeah. And, there's great restaurants. A few have closed of late. There's some struggling going on downtown. La Boniche closed. Centro's closed.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. It's a lot of empty storefronts in the last
need more
couple
incentives
months.
or something, huh?
I think there needs to be something happening down there.
Yeah, because but it's doing a lot better than a lot of other old manufacturing cities.
It is.
Waterbury, Connecticut.
Yeah.
But it's not doing nearly as well as Lowell is doing.
Yeah, no, it's
because of the national parks and everything like that.
Right, and I think over the last, I think some of the political distractions, took our eyes off the ball a little bit, and didn't allow us to really continue focusing on, and that's. That does a disservice to the people of Lowell and the community of Lowell, but I like that aspect. I like being down there. There's a great arts community in downtown Lowell that's really enjoyable.
You have a place to park your car?
I do. I park right. One of the great things about downtown Lowell is that it's got great parking garages. Do
you have a space that you buy?
No, it's not you buy a space. You buy a space with your unit. Where I rent.
Oh, with your unit,
yep,
I see.
You get
great.
it,
That's
and
good.
And then it's great when it's snow. Yeah, you probably saw I did post something back in November that I got a lot of response to about the fact that for the first time in 30 years, I didn't have to worry about snow.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
I didn't have to worry about plowing it. I didn't have to worry about the complaints that we're plowing too much, we're not plowing enough, and
plowing in my
all
driveway,
that other stuff. But I didn't have to worry about any of that, and it's really my first winter. My first winter. I was down there last winter too. I just park in the garage and I don't have to worry about shoveling or any of that stuff.
Which
I
is
just
nice,
wait until the streets are plowed and then I can just drive right out. So it's great.
Well, Paul Cohen has a lot of that you had here in Chelmsford now, and I guess it's 8 years. And so, how do you think Paul Cohen is doing as a town manager? Do you have any opinion on that? No?
I do. I think Paul's doing a great job.
Okay,
I think that he's moving the town forward on a number of different fronts. Certainly, financially, the town's in good shape. I like to think that it was in good shape when he came on, but he had to deal with all those economic issues that all the communities had to deal with. We had built up, when I was manager, we had really built up the stabilization fund, the reserves from, I think we had $200,000, $300,000 back when I started, and we got it up over $8 million. We kind of drew that down, probably more than I wanted to, but we were trying to do a lot of capital items. The problem, what I see my time here in Chelmsford is as many ways dealing with the expansive growth of the 60s the early 70s, sort of dealing with many of those issues in the 90s. You know, we built the sewer system. We finally dealt with the library issue. We dealt with many of the school buildings all needed to be repaired because they were all built in the 60s, so they all had to be repaired in the 90s. You know, we built the auditorium. We built the police station, which was inadequate.
Yep.
You know, we started working on ideas for DPW, and Paul was able to make that happen. With the, you know, and I know that Jim Pearson played a big role in that. Obviously, you got the new fire station. That was an issue that was out there that we were certainly. But at the same time, you know, he's been able to build that reserves back up. I don't know where it stands now, but I think he's done a good job.
Yeah,
doing
it's
that.
doing pretty well.
The other thing I think with Paul is that he's really immersed himself in the community, and you know, as a manager, I think that that's very important. And I tried to do that when I was here, and I tried to do it over in Lowell. But Paul has certainly done that.
Wonderful. Well, another person you work with, I think, is Marty Meehan, right? Because you must see him as you're an adjunct professor, UMass Lowell. There's speculation now that he might be selected as the new president of UMass throughout the state. So paying, what, $600,000 or whatever, plus a couple $100,000 of benefits. A very nice job. You know, the president of the United States only makes $400,000.
That's right.
So I mean, but he's doing a great job as far as I could tell from what I read at UMass Lowell.
He has.
So I think he has a very good shot at. What are your thoughts about that, of being the president of the University of Massachusetts?
I think Marty would do a great job at it.
Do you ever talk to him about it, by the way?
I don't.
Or you can't say?
I can't really. I mean, Marty, I keep in touch with the chancellor from time to time, but we have a really great relationship. We had you know, I actually, Marty and I went to college together. We both graduated the same year at the University of Lowell at the time. And not that we really knew each other that well, but when he became a congressman, obviously we had quite a bit of dealings. And then when he became chancellor and I was city manager, we had a tremendous amount of dealings. And we had our sort of contentious time at the beginning negotiating the arena deal. Yes. But he was trying to get the best deal for the university. I was trying to get the best deal for the city. And we took that really as a chance to build a good working relationship, and I think we did that.
Yes.
I consider Marty to be a friend, and I have the highest respect and regard for the job he's done.
Yes.
And I think that I think he'd make a tremendous president of the university system. At the same time, I have a vested interest in seeing the UMass Lowell continue on to great things, and so I sort of have mixed feelings. But I went to UMass Lowell, or University of Lowell, as an undergraduate. I went to UMass Amherst for graduate school.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I'm really sold on the UMass system, and whatever can move that forward, I'd be very happy about.
And you know what I was just thinking? What if Marty does become president of UMass throughout the state? That would be an opening in Lowell, and wouldn't you be a good selection for that? Did you ever think of becoming chancellor of UMass Lowell?
I've never thought about becoming chancellor of UMass Lowell. No,
I think it'd be great.
I won't say I wouldn't. I love that. I'd never really thought about that before, but
because especially being a UMass alumnus,
right.
I think it'd be great.
Well, I'll have to
and you're a
think
leader,
about that.
you know, of Chelmsford and Lowell.
Yeah.
You've proven yourself.
I don't know about being chancellor, but I have thought about higher education, something academic like that.
Well, could I ask
sure.
how old you are, Bernie?
Sure,
because
58.
Oh, so you still, I mean, you have plenty of years.
Very young, so, yeah.
And especially these days, I was just thinking about age recently, right? Because, you know, Hillary Clinton, if she does run for president, she'll be about 68, 69 years old, I think, when she's just starting. Right. But Ronald Reagan was in his 70s, I think, right? And a lot of people consider him one of the greatest Republican presidents, anyway, of the country. And I was thinking, a lot of people.
I'd put Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt above him, but
so. But a lot of people do great things in their 70s and 80s. And Bill Maher, I don't know if you watch his show, but he did a great segment about the wisdom of age. Like Jerry Brown is now the governor of California.
Doing a great job
in his 70s. And he says with age very often brings wisdom. And we should be cherishing that and allowing these older people to be leaders when they're ready. So I think, you know, with you being 58 years old, you have decades.
I have another 30 years.
If you want to work. Personally, I don't like working for other people, so I like being on my own. But it sounds like you do like to work for other people, working in organizations to some extent.
To some extent.
But I like being free, and I've been an investor for over 16 years now and doing my own thing, and I love it. But I do my volunteer, shows and my Facebook groups and all kinds of stuff I do as a volunteer.
There's a lot to
That's
keep
the way
busy.
I like to do it, for me.
Yeah, there's pros and cons both ways.
Yes, yeah.
And, for instance, I certainly looked at the city manager's job in Worcester opened up, actually it opened up before I left Lowell. But they didn't begin their search for months afterwards. And some people talked to me about that. But I really wasn't interested in going back into that municipal management world.
So you didn't apply
no,
for
so
that,
I didn't.
did you
No,
say?
I didn't apply there. And there's been a couple other positions that people have talked to me about. But it's really not what I'm interested in doing at this point in time. Now, I'm not saying, you never say never.
Yeah, yes.
If the right situation came up, there might be some potential for me doing something like that again. But right now, I'm just, as I say, I'm keeping very busy, doing quite a number of different projects.
Which sounds fascinating
Heading off
to
and
me.
kind of keeping them all the balls in the air can be difficult. But
plus, I
it's
assume
fun.
you're getting a pension, right?
I am.
Or do you have to wait? Okay, good.
Nope, I'm getting
Well,
my
that's
pension.
good. So, things are good financially probably for you. And
They can
you know
always
what I
be
mean?
better.
Always be better, okay. Yeah.
You're an investor. You
Right,
know
right,
that.
yeah, we know that, yes.
Yeah, no,
but it's good, though,
I'm very happy with
which is
with where I am.
Yeah,
and,
so it sounds great,
yeah.
the life you're leading right now and, traveling and
traveling,
so
playing some
it's
golf.
great. So, Oh, yeah, I remember,
getting
you're
around.
quite a golfer. And your
So-
children are quite the athletes, as I remember. The
My-
baseball
both-
play-
yeah, both
are. They
are-
still,
both
Did
are.
they graduate from college?
One had graduated from the University of Chicago, and he's married, and
Really? Wow.
he's expecting his first child coming up in the next few months. So I'll be a grandfather.
Congratulations. Your
Thank
first
you. My
grandchild?
first. Yeah.
Congratulations.
My other son is still working his way through deciding how what he's going to focus in on in college, but. They're both doing very well.
Oh, that's
Doing
wonderful.
well. Yeah. So.
Well, as I spoke with the senator earlier today, some of the issues that we talked about, one was you see the minimum wage is going up to $9 an hour in about a week, and then $11 in a couple of years. What do you think about the increase in the minimum wage?
Absolutely essential. One of the biggest issues facing this country from a political standpoint and from an economic standpoint is inequality. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that we need to do something about that, and the end result will be a much more vibrant economy. Yes. When you look at what the economy was like at its most prosperous time, back during the 50s, 60s, early 70s, there was far less inequality, economic inequality, than there is today. And so the argument that somehow you need to have this rampant amount of inequality to make the system work is wrong. And there's been some great work done by economists like Thomas Piketty that show that certainly people like Paul Krugman, who show that the inequality is a problem here, and we need to do something about it, and that will jumpstart the economy. If you have all these people making more money, they're going to be buying consumer goods. They're going to be, building their lives. That's going to create more demand, total demand, aggregate demand, and jumpstart the economy even greater. They can do that. There's only so many refrigerators that wealthy people can buy, and other consumer goods. So I'm totally in favor of raising the minimum wage. Wonderful. Absolutely.
Well, another issue having to do with sometimes lower middle class or middle class people and some poor people are the recent police shootings, often of African American young men and boys. And so there have been protests throughout the country right now. So it's a big issue right now. That's why I'm bringing it up. I wonder if you have any thoughts about that. Do you think some police need to be retrained? Do you think they're turning their backs on the mayor of New York City the way they have been lately is reasonable and a responsible thing to do?
There's a lot of moving parts there. I've been in charge of police departments for, again, almost 30 years. I've had the benefit of I count many police officers as friends. I've had the opportunity to appoint, I think, 5 or 6 police chiefs during my career. I value the work that the police do. Having said that, there are police officers that like every profession, that need, that one, may not be appropriate, or two, need training, better training, and a little bit more awareness. And it can be a small number, but it's still out there. And I think that the end result of that is it creates a perception, if not a reality. And let's face it, perception, I remember Bill Dalton always used to tell me this, perception is reality. Well, perception or reality is that there is a level of racism in this country that we need to do something about. And so I think the protests are people's right, and they should be able to do that. And I think that they have a good case in some cases. Yes. I think that the police have a right to ask that people support them, and that they, because they do a very difficult job, and they do a very important job for us. And but I think that I know that some of I've seen on Facebook again that some of the people that are police related in some way are very excited with what the police did to Mayor de Blasio. I am not. I think there's a level of almost insubordination that takes place there. Yeah. That I don't think he said anything anti-police.
No.
All he said is these people should protest what they feel needs to be protested, and we need to have a dialogue. We need to have some discussions about this. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And for the police to say that, to take every comment made by the mayor, any number of governors, the president, the attorney general, as being anti-police, police, like all of us in public service, need to be able to be questioned, and if they're or challenged into how they're doing their job.
Yes.
And so at the same time, obviously, violence by protesters, right. Lunatic gunmen going and shooting those police officers was horrendous, horrendous. And police officers should not be, in any way made victims as a result of this. But I wish everyone would just sort of step back and just have a good discussion without finger pointing, without animosity.
Yes.
And I think we'd be far better off if that happened.
Yeah. And the New York Times had an editorial about the police turning their back on the mayor. Did you see it this morning?
I didn't see that.
Okay,
I read the Times this morning, but I read it online and I missed things from time to time. So.
And so it's online there today. So if you have a chance,
I
it's
will.
a very good editorial, I think. And they think the police shouldn't be doing things like that. And I think the head of the police feels the same way. In New York.
Bill Bratton.
Bill
Bratton does. Yeah, he's got a tough job there because he needs to maintain the support of the men and women of the police force, but at the same time he's an appointee of the mayor. But unfortunately the union president, I do think there's a level of politicalization or politicizing this issue, which was a tragedy, truly a tragedy to have those two officers cut down in that way. But at the same time, I think everyone needs to step back.
And also, a lot of the African-American young boys who have been killed, or men, or
right.
men. I saw the man being choked, for example, and he was selling cigarettes, and
right.
he wasn't like selling heroin or something, for one thing.
Right.
But you could see things in the video, and that's what gets people so angry, I think. No matter what was the prelude, I did not see him like going to punch the officer or anything.
Right.
And for him to die after he says, "I can't breathe," be choked to death.
Right.
So, and at least bring it up to a court and let them try to have it judged.
And in many of these cases, it's just a matter of letting it go to trial. So,
yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, Bernie, I'm so glad you could be on the show. I wish we had more time because we have so many things
done?
to talk about. Just yes. And it's your 26th time on the show, Bernie.
Well, thanks.
So you're in the top three.
Okay.
3 out of over 300 guests. Makes you what? The top 1%. So Bernie, you made the top 1%.
I'm a 1%. Right.
Yes.
It's
so
something.
Thank you so much. So
thank you.
The third most of all the guests, and I appreciate that you still come on the show, since even though you're not the town manager of Chelmsford anymore, you're still very involved in our community and other communities, and you're still an important leader in Massachusetts. So I always love having you on the show, Bernie. Thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck.
And Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you.